Hey everyone, welcome to my channel Rollo 3D and welcome to my new series on how to install Klipper on an old laptop or desktop. We're actually going to be installing Klipper on an old Lenovo desktop that I have. It's going to replace my laptop and it's basically going to sit under my desk and it's going to run all of my 3D printers. So what we're going to do today in part one is we're going to go ahead and grab our Linux ISO. We're going to grab our flashing tool. We're going to flash this to a USB and we are going to install it on my desktop and we're going to make sure we can access Mainsail. This is what we're going to accomplish in part one. I'm going to take this slow and we're going to try to go through everything up until the point of getting the web interface to load so everyone can do that. So the first thing that we need to do here is we need to choose our Linux distribution we're going to use for Klipper. I've had excellent luck with Ubuntu. Ubuntu is based on Debian, so it is as compatible as you could get, I guess, for Klipper. Klipper is meant to install on a Debian-based Linux environment, so I'm choosing Ubuntu. It's a little bit more lightweight than full Ubuntu. And that's the ISO that I'm choosing. So we're going to go ahead and download this here. We'll do 64-bit. You can either download this via torrent, or I believe you can actually just download it from an actual link here. Yeah, just the ISO itself. So we'll go ahead and I'll just download it from the actual link. So we'll get the latest version here. And then I am going to use my favorite flashing tool, which is Etcher. So I went to the Etcher website here. I believe Balena purchased Etcher, so it's called Balena Etcher now. Just download this for Windows. And that's the tool that we're going to be using to flash our USB drive. And then, of course, like videos I've made previously, we're going to be using the Klipper installation and update helper. This is the best way to get Klipper, especially on like a desktop or laptop environment, because there's no pre-compiled OS with these installed, so we do have to install it manually, and this installation and update helper will help us do that. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in my USB stick here into my computer. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab Balena Etcher here. I actually already have it installed. All right. We're going to go ahead and we're going to choose our flash file here, which is Ubuntu. We're going to select our USB drive and we are going to click flash. So basically just got to wait for that to flash. And that's all we're going to be doing here on my desktop. I'll take you over onto my desk behind me here with my desktop and my Klipper desktop, and we'll go through the installation of Linux. All right. All right. Here we are at my 3D printer desk. You can see Simple Core here is taking up most of the desk, but we have a little bit of space here. So I've plugged my USB stick here into my old Lenovo desktop, and on this desktop, it automatically booted from the USB. On yours, you might have to press one of the F keys or enter to get into a boot menu so you can choose the USB. But on mine, it automatically booted from USB. So just note that. You can Google your device and find out how to get into the boot menu so that you can boot from USB. Mine automatically did it. And Ubuntu by default has this menu here. So it gives you a couple different options. You can try Ubuntu without installing, or we can install it. And we're going to choose the install. We don't want to try it, we want to install. So we're going to select that and it's going to take us into the installation wizard. You can install Ubuntu or Ubuntu from the try option. In my opinion, it just takes a little bit longer and there's no real point to it. So I'm going to boot right into the installation and we'll cut back here once we boot into the install. All right, here we are at the installation wizard. we're gonna basically just be a simple next type installation here. Choose our languages. You can choose to download updates while installing. I'm just gonna do the basic. I'm not gonna actually check any of these. You should be okay with checking these boxes. If you're running a laptop or something like that, you might want additional software for graphics and Wi-Fi and stuff like that. But we're gonna go ahead and just go with the standard there. All right, and here we are choosing our installation type. So we don't want to install Ubuntu alongside Windows Boot Manager. Windows is installed on this device, so we're going to actually erase the disk and just install Linux. We're just going to install Xubuntu. And then we're going to choose our drive. This is my boot drive here. It's a 256 gig SSD basically. And we're going to use that for Xubuntu, and we're going to choose install now. And I mean, essentially that's it. We're going to just continue with the changes. And the process will run, and it'll actually go ahead and install. I'm connected to the internet, so you can see here my time zone is correct. We're going to go continue. So I'm going to choose log me in automatically. We're going to call the name Klipper. This is the desktop. Doesn't really matter to me what the computer's name is right now. You can name this whatever you like. And actually, let's do this. I'm going to actually just call this user, and I'm going to just call the computer Klipper. So we do have to use a password. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I'll just use my typical something easy, so that's what we're going to go with. And I've chosen to log in automatically, so I shouldn't really need to use that. We will need to use that for like sudo and stuff like that, but that's pretty much it for an installation in Klipper on actual desktop. So I'll bring you guys back once we finish the install and we get booted into actual Linux, and then we'll start going ahead and installing KIAUH. And here we are. We are at my desktop here on my Klipper machine, and the first thing that you want to make sure is that you have a valid IP address and you can get to the internet. So if we go up to the top here and go to connection information, we can also see here that I am connected and I have an IP. So this is the best way to find out if you have an IP address, and you must have this before you can go forward. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go into the web browser here. I'm actually going to go to internet, and I'm going to use Firefox. And we're going to navigate to the Klipper install and update helper. That is the next step. And we're going to go ahead and we are going to follow the instructions here. So let's go ahead and do this and continue on with the video. All right, so let's open up a terminal here. And let's copy and paste these commands. So we're going to make sure we're in root. We're going to clone the actual, right. I want to show this because I forgot to install Git. So we need a program called Git so that we can clone. So let's actually install Git. This should only take a few seconds. This is a great benefit of installing Linux on a full-size desktop or laptop or whatever, not using a Raspberry Pi. Massively faster than a Raspberry Pi. So not only do you save money, but you get a much better piece of hardware to do this. So now let's clone our Git. Let's clone KIAUH's Git. So we could see we successfully cloned it, and now we're going to just navigate to the actual Klipper install and update helper folder, and we're going to run the script. So you can see here it's successful. We have the KIAUH script installed on our Linux desktop. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to start installing the items from the top here going down to the bottom for what we need. So we're going to choose number 1 here, install. So we're going to press 1, hit enter. We're going to first start by installing Klipper. So we're going to press number 1, enter. It's going to ask us to choose the version of Python we want to use. We're going to do the recommended. So let's press number 1 and hit enter. And then how many installs of Klipper do we want? So I am going to install a bunch of 3D printers on this desktop. So I am going to include 4 of them. So we're going to choose 4 here. And we want to install 4. And then it's going to ask us here, do we want to use some custom names? So we're going to go yes. So I'm going to call the first one Simple Core. So that's one of my first printers that I'm going to use. Second one is going to be for a Delta. So I'm just going to call this Delta. And then we're going to just for now call this printer 3. I don't believe you can have spaces here. So let's printer 3 and printer 4. All right, so it's going to go ahead and it's going to create 4 versions of Klipper on this desktop. That's another great feature of running it on a powerful piece of hardware is we can run multiple printers from the same machine, saving a whole bunch of money, especially if you have a lot of printers. You don't have to spend $100 every single time. You can save that $100. So, and I like now that the KIAUH script, it actually updated a little bit so you can actually name them right away, which is really, really neat. So we'll probably just sit here and let this run through. This shouldn't take too long. Like I say, we're on a wired internet connection here, and we're on a relatively fast desktop. So I wouldn't imagine this takes very long to install. While we're waiting for this, we're going to be using my favorite web interface, which is Mainsail. You can choose to use Fluid, or if you want, I don't generally cover it in my videos. You can use Octoprint and Klipper, so you can use Octoprint as your interface. I don't do that. Generally, I don't need many features of Octoprint. All right, so everything looks successful here. So let's scroll up a little bit. So we have all of our instances here, Simple Core, Delta, Printer 3, Printer 4. And then this is basically just doing a little bit of cleanup is, do you want to add your user to the group to run these? And we're going to say yes. So if we go back now, we can see we have 4 instances of Klipper installed, which is awesome. So we're going to go back into install, and we're going to install Moonraker. So the next item on the list, it found we have 4 instances, and yes, we want to install 4 versions of Moonraker. And it's going to go ahead and do everything for us. This is why the KIAUH in the script is so awesome. You don't have to really know anything about Klipper or anything like that. It handles everything for you. It goes out, gets the latest version, and it installs it right for you. So Moonraker is the service basically that goes in between your web interface and Klipper. It allows the communication between your web interface to your Klipper and to your printer. So Moonraker is very important. You don't do anything with it. It's just the middleman essentially, and it does everything kind of in the background and facilitates connecting and all that kind of stuff. So again, we'll let this run through here. Should be relatively fast. We're on a pretty fast machine, and there we go. Again, we're going to go back. You can see here we have 4 versions of Moonraker installed, which is awesome. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to install Mainsail. So I'm going to hit number 1 again. We're going to choose our web interface, which is Mainsail. Press number 3. And it's going to go ahead and build our Mainsail installation. This is personal preference. I prefer Mainsail. I find the interface a bit cleaner. We can run a webcam. So I am going to install the MJGP streamer for webcam support, just in case I want to install a webcam in the future. Why not? And then it's asking, do we want to install the recommended macros? And we're going to say yes. Just so that it's as ready and there's as little work for us to do as possible. Let's have the script do everything for us that's possible. And we honestly should be getting to the end of the video here. After this is done, we should be able to access our website and get to our Mainsail page, and we should be able to see all 4 versions of Klipper. And again, I can't stress enough how much faster this is than even a Raspberry Pi 4. Not only is the web interface much snappier, but doing all of these tasks is much, much faster than a Raspberry Pi. And if you have a laptop, the Wi-Fi is so much better on a laptop. That's what I've been running all 3 of my printers on, actually, is I have a X1 laptop underneath my desk here. And just, I'll go to like one of my older printers, one of my printers that has a Raspberry Pi still in it, and I forget how much more sluggish the web interface is, and uploading G-code files and all that kind of stuff on a Raspberry Pi, because I'm so used to using Klipper on my laptop. It's just such a faster machine. So it's just finishing up this MJPG streaming service. This can take a few moments for sure. It definitely takes a while on the Raspberry Pi 4, but this should be kind of completed here relatively quickly. And while that's running, actually, let's just actually see if I can get to anything. Look at that. We already have Mainsail up and running here. So I'm just using localhost to get to my actual printers. So we'll let this finish off here. And there we go. So we're done with the Klipper install update helper for now. Let's just go back. We can see we have all of our items installed. All right, so we're back over here on my main desktop. I'm done with my being directly on my Klipper desktop. So what I've done here, there's 2 ways to access our new Klipper installation on that old PC. You can use the host name. So I remember when I installed Klipper, I called the printer Klipper. So you can go to http://klipper.local, or you of course can go to the IP address of the printer. Either one will work. For now, we're just going to go to klipper.local, and you can see here there's no printer shown up. We're basically at the very top level of Mainsail. There's no printer showing here. Now, if you've installed just a single instance of Klipper, this will bring you automatically to your printer. But because I have 4 installations of Klipper, basically it's just asking me for these 4 printers. So we're going to go in here and we're going to add a printer. Now, each printer is defined by a port number. That's how it's set up, or that's how they're differentiated. So if I go into here, you can put in the host name or IP address. So I'm just going to go in here and put in Klipper, port 7125. We're going to add printer. And you can see that worked. So I can click on this and I can get to my first instance of Klipper. So this is what you would normally see like on a Raspberry Pi. If I want to add another one, we can go up to the top right corner here and we can add more printers. So let's add another printer. So we're going to go in Klipper because that's the host name of our desktop, but we're going to change the port number to 7126. It just goes up by 1. We're going to add. We'll close out of here. And if we go to printers, you can see now I have 2 printers. I can switch to this one. And now we're on our second printer. And what I'm going to do is, just to make it easier for people to see, is I'm going to name this one too. We're going to call this Delta for my Delta printer. So you can see here, if I refresh this, I think it updates. Yeah. So we have a Delta printer here and we have Simple Core, and these are completely different. I can even differentiate this even more. So let's go to our simple core here, and let's change some of the UI colors. So let's change this to green just so we can much easier visualize the difference. So now we have our simple core here. It's all themed up with green. You can see that here. If I switch over to Delta, you can see it's red. So these are in fact two separate installs of Klipper, and we can control simultaneously two separate printers. And this is why running on a laptop or desktop is so great. You can have 3 or 4 printers running on the same hardware. And like I did previously, I have 2 more printers to set up. So we can add, again, the other printers here. It's the same host name, and it's just a different IP. So instead, we're going to use 7 this time. And then I have my 4th one here. So we're going to go 8, I believe, is my last one. So there's our 4 installations of Klipper. And that's going to basically bring us to the end of this part 1. And I wanted to end here. So I haven't done anything else on the Klipper desktop. I didn't open any ports up or anything like that. I was able just to go over to my other device and get into the web interface right away. There's no extra steps you need to do. If you've done this correctly, you should be able to install Linux, run the KIAUH script, install Klipper, Moonraker, and your web interface, and it should just work. There's no extras needed, especially if you're using Ubuntu, which I recommend. So in part 2, we're going to start going over setting up one of these printers and actually connecting to it. And then I'll take you over some other things too as well, but like I say, I want to try to organize this nice and clearly and take it one step at a time. But thanks everyone, I appreciate it. We're at 800 subscribers right now, which is just absolutely incredible. I appreciate all support. Ask any questions below about whatever you have about part 1, and I'll make a part 2 here shortly. Thanks everyone.